I started to realize that this is like quantum-based information coming in that I have no background with.
The man you just saw is Jason Ford, a former professional baseball player. And if there was one thing that was far from his mind, it was the whole topic of UFOs. He couldn't care less about it and definitely wasn't looking for them. But that didn't matter because they were looking for him. Over a period of several years, he was visited numerous times and received communication from an intelligence much higher than ours, sharing mathematical formulas and quantum-based information that Jason had no idea what to do with. That raised important questions. Who are these alien beings? What do they want? And are they really like what we've been led to believe? Hello and welcome to the Almost False podcast, where I interview regular people with incredible stories. Unless you've been living under a rock, I'm sure that you too have heard the UFO talk pick up in the last couple of years. There's a lot of interest surrounding the topic, understandably, and there are a lot of questions associated with it, which is why I was happy to interview Jason and go through all of his experiences in detail, some of which he was actually able to capture on camera, and we'll take a look at them after. This interview will not answer all the questions you might have, but I would say that it'll answer the most important ones. Quite honestly, he's seen things that sound out of a sci-fi movie. I'm talking holograms, orbs, telepathy, missing time. We got a lot on the menu, so I will not waste any more of your time. Let's get right into the story with Jason himself.
Yeah, buckle up, because this is like where truth is stranger than fiction. This was a trip, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And the other thing too that was really I've always had a really good memory, almost like a videographic memory, which is a curse and a blessing, by the way, because if you have a videographic memory and you're remembering things from your past, maybe you're ashamed of, guilty of, you visit those and you're like, it's like you were there. And then you can also experience good times too. But especially when I started going through this whole 7-8 year process of experiencing this orbs and craft manifestation and everything, it was like I was on high alert. So I remember this day to a T. October 7th, well, the date would have been October 6th of 2018. I was up in LA for work, doing some workshops for people like I normally do, just kind of doing my dog and pony show, business as usual. But that week before this, we're on October 6th. This week before, I could not explain. And I know a lot of people have experienced synchronicities on the clock, but it was more than just the clock too. I was having synchronicities, meaning meaningful coincidences. I was having not only every single time that I would look at the clock, it would be 11:11, 1:11, 2:22, 5:55. And I didn't think much of it at first, but as the week went on, it was like it was out of control. It was to the point where there's no way that this is coincidence. Something strange is going on. And on top of the synchronicities on the clock, it just seemed like there was I can't remember exactly the details, but there were things happening where I'm like, man, that's really weird. I just had a conversation with somebody about that, and now this is happening. So couldn't explain it, didn't think much about it. I got done with the workshops that day, and I remember one of my counterparts came in, one of my buddies that I worked with, and we were having a conversation. I'm like, hey, I'm going to get back to the hotel, wrap up some stuff. And as soon as I look at the clock, it's 3:33. And I remember telling him, I go, dude, I'm like, this is insane. Every time I look at the clock, it is on a synchronistic number. And I'm talking every single time. And he just kind of blows it off, like most of us do, right? And he's like, yeah, bro, good luck, So I'm like, okay, I'll try to blow it off and just get back to the hotel, go on with business. I get to the hotel room, and this is where the strange stuff really starts. So this is before the actual incident the next day, which is where I have the light phenomenon. I'm in the hotel room, and I would usually get a workout in so that I would get work done on the laptop, get down, do some push-ups, get back up, get some work done. I'd been feeling really euphoric this week, and I had not been drinking either. I'd been, I would go through these spurts where I'd be like, you know what, I need to mellow out. I need to just take a break, detox, and get it together. So I hadn't been drinking for a couple of weeks. So I thought, well, maybe I'm just having this energy, and maybe I'm just more aware, and that's why I'm seeing these synchronicities on the clock and things. Maybe I'm just a little bit more crisp, a little bit more sharp in the head. And so I get down to do these push-ups, and I get to 25, which is what I would normally do. I do 25, get back up, get down, and I get to 100 through the sets of 25. I blow through 25 and I get to 50, And I'm like, this isn't normal. I'm just cranking these out, and I'm doing like military grade style, like all the way to the bottom of the floor. And I'm not even breathing hard. And so I'm like, well, keep going. So I get to 75. Still not breathing hard. It's like this supernatural strength that I had never experienced in my life. And I started like, you rationalize. You're like, wait a minute. Like, did I lose weight? Maybe it's because I haven't been drinking and haven't weighed myself. Have I lost like 10 pounds and I'm just ripping these things out? Get to 100, no problem. And at that point, I'm kind of tripping out because I'm like, this is strange. I've never had unusual strength like this, but I felt really good to the point where I like didn't even care. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, I feel great. But at that point, I get up on my knees just to stand up. And as I look down at the carpet, you know how, if you've ever faded out, like, I know there'd been times where I was in like a business meeting or something and you're just bored out of your mind and maybe you're spacing out a little bit on like a patterned carpet and it starts, it starts kind of, it just starts meshing and you're just like, okay, it's just your vision, you're just kind of looking at the patterns maybe morphing because you're tired or whatever. I'd had that happen before, but this was like a solid, and like I say, what appeared to me enough to the point where I was like, this is extremely strange. What appeared to be like a hologram that was layered above the carpet by a couple inches. So it was like a very crisp, clear, like grid over the top of the carpet that kind of spread out. And I'm sitting there, I'm putting my hand down through what appears to me as a hologram, and I'm touching the floor, and I just kind of keep coming up and down out of it. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, did I get roofied? Like, did somebody put something in my food or drink? Like, what's up with the strength? This isn't normal. And then at that point, my iPhone, which had been sitting on my desk and they just totally muted as far as hadn't had any activity on the phone the last half hour at least, a voice comes out of the phone. And this is where my heart jumps because it roars out of the phone. And it's a man's voice. And it starts stating, if you're seeing synchronicities like 111, 222, 555, and and at that point, I'm like on a hyperventilating. I'm just like, oh my God, what is this? So I run over, I grab the phone, I pick up the iPhone and I look at it and it's 555. So this voice comes out of the phone stating what I've been experiencing this whole week. It's 555. I glance over at the alarm clock, which is those old alarm clocks sitting on the nightstand there. It's 555. And at that point, the first thing that went through my head is I'm going crazy. This is off. This isn't normal. And you start rationalizing it. Like, I remember it's that quick. I'm going through my head. I'm like, you've been on the road for 10 years, pretty much by yourself. You've been in stop and start traffic. Maybe something got you. Maybe you've been drinking too much, whatever it is. Just trying to rationalize all this stuff away. And I could not sleep that night. I tried to just forget about it, went to bed, and this is where I think it really started coming on intensely. When I say it, I'm talking about thought forms that were starting to come into my head that I know now were not from me. And they weren't voices, but it was, I'm in bed all night long. And the incessant thought that I got was, you need to go down to the beach tonight, back home in Dana Point, which was about an hour and a half, 2 hours away down south. And you're going to witness something. You need to get down there. And then I'm going in my head, well, I'm like, well, wait a minute. I've got all these workshops I've got scheduled at work the next day. I can't just bail on them. But I was so compelled by the feeling, the euphoria, and this message coming through that I literally canceled those workshops and maybe just being spiritually starved at that point, looking for something else, whatever that was. I'd be willing to experience something. I think maybe that was part of it. So I just bolted home that next day and kind of just waited around until like 10:30 at night, and then I can go into the experience unless you have any questions there.
Well, I have one question before you get into the first experience. When you started experiencing these things, what was your initial thought? Did you think that did it feel benevolent? Did you feel unnerved? Like, how was that? Were you scared of it? Like, how was it for you?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I wasn't scared at all. And it didn't give me a feeling of whether it was good or bad either. You know what it felt like is that the best way I can explain it, it felt like that whole week, without having details of what was happening, like there was a dimensional reality shift. It's the only way I can explain it. It felt like the reality that I was living in was slowly morphing into something that was sharper, I was more alert, noticing things more, and the things with the things on the clocks, maybe that made it even, maybe just intensified it, but it didn't feel good or bad. If anything, I felt euphoric. So it was definitely a lighter feeling than a darker one at that point.
Okay, so these things happen. You go back to your home, and then the next day things start going down. So yeah, tell us what happened.
Yeah, so it's about 10:30 at night, and I'm just sitting on the couch, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, this is nuts. Like, what am I doing? Like, I'm waiting around to go down to the beach, because this turned into not just thinking I'm going to experience something. It's like I knew that I'm going to experience something. I had the phone ready. That was the first thing. I'm going to tape this. I'm going to get it on video. I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to capture something. So I live down by Strands Beach. If you've never been to Strands Beach in Dana Point, there's a long staircase that goes down, probably 200 steps, and it's pretty steep. But at 10:30, you're going to be the only one down on that beach, most likely. And I was. And so I go out the sliding glass door. I start cruising down that staircase, and it only takes me, I don't know, 3-4 minutes to get all the way down. But all there is at the bottom is just a lamp that kind of shines a light into the sand. But I remember very vividly that the night, especially, was crystal clear. Like, it seemed like the clearest I had ever seen it. Like, you could see the silhouette of Catalina off in the horizon, which is like 30 miles. But there was no clouds at all, nothing. And the stars are not going to be as bright there because you have all the city lights from like Orange County that are kind of resonate off, so you don't get a lot of stars. So it's just black. So I'm like, this is perfect. This is like a perfect setup for whatever I think I'm going to experience at this point. So I get down to the end of the staircase. I take an immediate right, and this is where it felt like autopilot, which is very strange, hard to explain if you've never had this strange experience. An autopilot, like I knew exactly where I was going, where I needed to go, and where I needed to look. I didn't even have to think about it. It was just like, okay, I'm going to go 200 yards this way approximately, and I'm just hoofing it through the sand. I get to that spot and literally just turn, look straight out towards Catalina, put the phone down on a rock, and I'm just like, boom, I'm zoned in. And there's still that little voice in the back of my head like, dude, this is nuts. What are you doing? You know, didn't matter. Whatever was happening was overriding any sort of voice that I had in my head that this is crazy, go back up the stairs, whatever. And so I sat there for about 5 minutes. I didn't know whether I should, am I supposed to meditate? Am I supposed to just stare out here, whatever? So I'm sitting there looking out across the ocean. I sit down on a rock for a minute because there's nothing happening for a couple minutes. And I'm looking over, checking my phone, put it down, and I look up from the rock. I'm still sitting, and sure enough, this pinpoint light, super, super bright. I can't explain how bright it was. It should have been blinding, but it didn't affect my eyes at all. It was just super bright and very small, but it looked like it had materialized like halfway in between Catalina and the beach that I'm on. Like I say, is about 30 miles, about a 45-degree angle up. And at that moment, it just started pulsating, and I started feeling like almost like a trance state kick in, but it was super, super peaceful, like to the point where I had never experienced peace like that before. Now, when I look back on it on that note, everything that I know now that happened since then, I think that was the ultimate point of deception where hook, line, and sinker, it's got me, this is good. Like this is a feeling that I would want forever, right? So not only is it sitting there pulsing, but I couldn't tell you how long this went on. It only seemed like 5 minutes to me. But what happened is the dot, the white dot coming through started expanding out horizontally and vertically, like the Star of Bethlehem is the best way to explain it. Because people have always asked me, what did it look like? Like, well, it was pulsing, and then it started expanding. And if like as big as it had expanded, like if I were to look out, if I were to put my fingers about that far apart in front of me, looking out towards the ocean, it's pretty large. It's taken up a good section of the sky. And I'm just like, what is this? And I'm like, kind of like, I don't care. This feels great. So that lasts for, like I say, what seems like 5 minutes. And I'm just kind of soaking this in. But then something clicked. I'm like, wait a minute, you got to get this on video. So I reach down, grab the phone, pick it up. So I do capture it. I capture it, but as soon as I start filming, it doesn't last very long, like maybe 20 seconds or so. And then it just kind of, that light just kind of collapses, and then almost like it's like a vacuum just took it back into the canvas of the sky. I'm just like, this is a trip. I don't know what to think. But here's the crazy part. And you have to remember, I don't know if we touched on this. This is something I was not looking for. I was not interested in UFOs. Never even really thought about it too much. But I looked at the clock. So I remember I went down about 10:30, and to get down those stairs only takes maybe 5 minutes. Okay. Almost 40 minutes had gone by since I sat on that rock and sat there for what I thought was 5 minutes, captured the film, and then got done. 40 minutes, almost 45 minutes. And at that point, my heart skipped a beat. I'm like, something is going on. And that's when a sense of fear came in, just based on circumstance. It wasn't like I was getting a fear from, at least I didn't feel a fear from what I experienced. I still had a lot of like a residual peace feeling. But at that moment, I'm like, I'm out. So I started heading towards the stairs at this point. So I go back to my left towards where the lamppost is. But this is something else that's crazy, is when I looked at the bottom of the stairs there, remember, this night is like crystal clear, not a cloud in the sky. There is just a puff of, I don't know the size of it, maybe by 15 feet wide, like a clump of fog, just dense clump of fog chilling over the lamppost, which was really strange. And I got a creepy vibe. As soon as that happened, I'm like, something isn't right here. There's this, I'm looking out, there's nothing, there's not a cloud in the sky. And now you have this cloud hovering over this lamppost. So I'm like, I'm out, I'm going up the stairs. So I start bolting up the staircase. The strange thing about this, and this is basically the end of the first experience, is when I went up the stairs, I'm looking back real quick to see if that light is like coming back at all, because now I'm a little bit freaked out. But as I go up towards and start walking up, it is like all of a sudden the fear starts dissipating that I had, which wasn't a ton of fear. It was still more euphoria and peace. Now I feel like I am gliding up the stairs. It is so effortless to get up these stairs where I'm skipping every other step. So that supernatural strength is what it feels like, to the point where I'm like laughing to myself. I'm like, this is insane. This doesn't make any sense. But I get like 3/4 of the way up. And any other day, if I would have gone that fast up that staircase, I would have been probably bent over, panting, exhausted. Nothing. To the point where I remember a thought went through my head. I'm like, I looked at my hand like, am I still alive? And that's how tripped out I was at this point. I'm like, this is weird. Heart's doesn't, it's beating, but it doesn't feel like there's anything except for just a regular heartbeat. Like, doesn't make any sense. I'm not breathing hard. And then once again, at that moment, my iPhone goes off. It's FaceTime. I never FaceTime with anybody. FaceTime with my kids. That was it when I was on the road. Didn't FaceTime with friends, family members. There was also no number. So my phone's going off, which startled me. And when I saw it was FaceTime, there was no number, and knew that I don't FaceTime with anybody except for my kids. That's when I'm like, I'm done. And a spark of fear came in, got back, went inside, and my wife and I were going through, essentially, we're going to get separated at this point. And I remember she was still up in the kitchen, and we weren't talking a lot. I mean, you're going through divorce, and it's a bummer because she had to deal with like all this depression and all the weird stuff that was going on that I couldn't explain. But she knew something was going on when I walked in, and she was in the kitchen, and I was like, check this out. And she kind of looks at it like, yeah, that's weird. And not much of a response, and which I understand. A lot of people are like, who cares? You saw something in the sky, not a big deal. But she could tell I was kind of freaked out. But anyways, that was the end of what I consider the hook, line, and sinker, almost like gotcha at that point. Something had, based on what I believe, based on the experience, something captured me at that point, or at least a fraction of me, to where I can explain what happened after that going forward.
Yeah, but let's camp here for a little bit, and because I have a few questions and a few comments to make. It's, first of all, a very, I don't think I even have an adjective to describe what this kind of story is like. But there's a lot of things in there that are interesting. I do want to point out one thing, that I've listened to many UFO encounters, and the phenomena of like missing time is something that comes back a lot, which is something that happened to you. The person's not really aware, but um, time seems to like skip. And I don't claim to exactly know how it is. I've heard theories, but at least that's something that is congruent with a lot of other experiences. Didn't seem to be a, well, I'm going to ask you actually, did it seem to be a physical? You seemed like to say that it was shifting up in the sky or changing forms. Did you have the feeling this was physical? Like maybe what I mean by physical is like an airplane, like metals and things like that. Did it seem to be that, or did you seem like to think that it was something else?
No, it didn't seem material at all. It seemed like because it had materialized in, and I saw it when it went basically, when it materialized, it started doing the pulsing. And then when it expanded out into the light or to like the Star of Bethlehem looking thing, it was still had this energy that was coming at it because I understand though, like that. In fact, it's funny you asked that because in the recording that I have of the light, you don't see the actual light. You see something, and that is a bunch of white discs going back and forth, super clear looking white discs going back and forth like this, not the white light. Something weird though, and you can hear the ocean, but you hear me, and I didn't remember saying this. You just hear me going, that's not an airplane. That's not a satellite. That's all you hear in the video. So I was trying to figure out like, what is this? So no, nothing material, and it was static too, except for the pulsing. It wasn't shifting around. It was just in one spot.
And I need to say, I've seen the video. It's definitely strange. We're going to go over it in the after show, like in detail, but I've seen it and I also don't know what to make of it. So I just wanted to point that out. But now, after this encounter, this whole, I mean, maybe like 30-minute, 45-minute thing, which seemed to you like maybe 5 or 10. The days after that, did anything change? Was there anything that happened, or was it just like something that happened once and you kind of moved on with life?
No, this was just the beginning of it. And so there was about 2 weeks after this, I sent you this video too. This is where I explain it like it life turned into the Twilight Zone. Like it was just I can't even explain it. Just strange stuff happening all around me where I'm like, this reality must be different than I thought, and I've shifted into some other dimension that either that or I've gone crazy. I couldn't rationalize it, and so that's where your world starts getting turned upside down, and why I want to share the story, because I know other people have experienced strange stuff like this they can't explain. And 2 weeks after this, I remember I was packing up in my in the beach house because I was getting ready to move over out of into an apartment down the street. And as I'm packing up, I remember my son, my 6-year-old son, is upstairs, and he was calling down to me like, "Hey, Dad, can you come up and fix my bed? The thing is broken off of it again." And I responded like, "Yeah, buddy, I'll be up there in a minute." And as soon as I did that, I turned to the side, and it was like a wall, like an invisible wall had hit me. Right? I explain it like goo. That was like I could move, but I couldn't go very far. And it was like a dense patch of something in front of me that I was like, now what the heck's going on now? I have no idea why I can't move forward. And I get it, that same thought in my head, kind of like, but super intense, more intense than the first night when I couldn't sleep and was having those incessant thoughts of going down to the beach. This was like, get outside, go look up in the sky now. And so I'm like, okay, I bust through what seems like this fog. I go through the garage straight out towards where my car is parked. And this is the weird stuff. And this just became normal to me. That's the strange thing, is I get out there and I just look straight up at like a 45. And that's the video I show you where there's a couple things that are strange about this video. I can't tell exactly how far the what looks like this oval super bright light is just kind of hovering in the sky. Maybe I'm guesstimating a mile, but it's just sitting there kind of chilling in the sky. And I didn't really get the euphoric feeling this time, though. It was like I was just looking at it, and I was videotaping it. So I start videotaping it, and it goes for like a minute and a half. But at the end of that video, a little tiny orb comes down in the upper right hand corner of the camera, just kind of cruises by this light that's standing there. That light starts kind of oscillating and pulsing, and then appears that it develops lights on tips of wings. Like, I mean, it was not a plane. It's very evident in the video, unless somebody sees something different. And then it's like almost like it was trying to disguise itself as a plane. But as soon as it did that, the video shut off on its own. So video goes done. I didn't end it. I wanted to keep filming. And at that point, I just headed back inside. And that is when, after that particular little episode, which was the second sighting in a 2-week period, that's when the automatic writing started. And I didn't even know what automatic writing was, but now I understand after I researched it and things. I was just dumping information on paper. Didn't know why, but I had to get it out of my head because it was like I was being infiltrated with thoughts that I could not explain, that if I did not put it down on paper, it was like spaghetti thrown against a wall. I knew it was spaghetti, but what do you do with it? And so I would try to organize it. And I'll stop there, but I can go into the automatic writing because that stuff got crazy. It was like information that none of this I was interested in, but the information that was coming through was crazy.
Before we get to the automatic writing, I want to ask about the second encounter. I have seen lights in the sky and then look long enough, it turns out to be a plane. What made you think that this definitely was not a plane?
First of all, the same feeling that I got, and when I knew exactly where to look, there it was. And if you take a look at the video, it's pretty tough to say it's a plane. In fact, I remember consciously going, you know what? I need to keep the roofs, the top of the roofs in the frame so that nobody can say this is a plane. It wasn't like I wasn't out to like prove, what was going on with me, but I definitely wanted to document depending on how far this went. And so I sat there, and if you watch it in the video, it's extremely bright. It's an oval, almost like it looks like a typical UFO disc saucer, right? But it's not metallic. It's just super bright white and it's shimmering. It's just kind of going like this. And then the fact that an orb comes down in the upper right-hand corner. So I totally understand, being skeptical about this stuff. I'm questioning my whole reality at this point. So that particular video didn't surprise me after I told a couple buddies, though, after this, and I showed it to them, and they lived in the area. And I was trying to share with them kind of gently, like, not everything, but dude, I'm like, have you ever seen any of this stuff like down where we live? And I remember one of them specifically is like, oh man, he goes, he was a tattoo artist. He goes, I was just talking to one of the girls I tattoo on, and she was telling me about how she's been seeing orbs down at the beach close to where you're at. And she says they end up turning into planes every time. And I thought, okay, well, that makes more sense now.
Interesting. I don't know what to make of it, but
a lot of this, man, I don't know what to make of it.
So let's go back to the automatic writing. So you have these thoughts to just like compulsive thoughts to write things down, but it doesn't seem to be coming from you. Could you understand what you were writing? What kind of things were you writing? Can you maybe describe that?
Yeah, it was ridiculously strange because this information that's coming through that I'm writing down, I feel like I'm compelled to write it. Almost like it doesn't scare me, but at the time, if I would have known maybe what was happening, I probably would have been a little bit more fearful because it was like something had a portion of me to take this information down. So a couple reasons I say that. The information coming through was obviously not information I had experience with, right? And I'll get into what the information was. But the other thing that was very strange about it is the penmanship. When I would take these, I remember getting a journal from CVS, and after about a week, that thing was full, and it was, a journal like that thick, but the penmanship would be perfect. And I never had bad handwriting, but this was perfect to the point was like, I've never been able to write like this. And it wasn't like I would get exhausted and the penmanship would fade and get a little bit more sloppy. I would just keep going, perfect penmanship, and then I would also draw diagrams because I was drawing like I would put out mathematical formulas, diagrams. If I drew a circle, for example, it'd be a perfect circle. And something to add on to that, because a lot of this stuff will start coming to me, is because there was so much craziness going on that when I tell the story, I remember. The other thing is during this period of time when I was taking these journals, all of a sudden I felt compelled to actually go and start drawing things. And for like a 6-month period, and then it faded. For like a 6-month period, I was a pretty decent artist. Like I would look at stuff and be like, whoa. I remember one day I was drawing some stuff at home, and my kids come home, and my wife at the time it was like, dude, did you draw that? I'm like, yeah. They're like, that's crazy good. I'm like, yeah, I know. I don't know where it's coming from. But that artistic ability, that faded. I could do it though for a short period of time. But the information I was putting into those journals, this is where I don't know, pyramids, Mars, reincarnation was a big one, Bigfoot. So remember, not into any of this stuff, and the mathematical formulas. And from there, all I could really do, if you want to kind of sum it up as time went on, is I started to realize, without really knowing it, that this is like quantum-based information coming in that I have no background with, but it's writing things down like frequency and vibration, and a lot of it was like the whole typical, when I look back at it now, like love and light and being a good person. So it was really good stuff. It was like, hey, this is great. Almost like it was trying to groom me into, we're going to give you some really good information here. And I think that was, any sort of lie, there's going to be 90% truth maybe to it. So a lot of this stuff made a lot of sense. And when I'm reading it, the strange thing is I'm like, there's no way this came from me. I don't know about any of this stuff, and I don't have any interest in any of it, and I still don't have any interest in it. What is it? That was the hard part, is trying to put it all together. But as time went on, I found a way to kind of dissect, and took years, but I could kind of get the feeling of what was happening.
So in the beginning, when this was happening, you were trying to rationalize it and say, like, oh, this may be because I'm not sleeping or whatever excuses you were talking about. At this point of the story, did you understand that this was coming from something else, or did you still try to rationalize it?
I knew it was coming from something else, but I wanted to think, of course, you want to think that it's something good, right? So I'm starting to think, well, maybe maybe this is what the God thing that everybody's talked about that I never really explored, because I'd lived that life where I was kind of like under the impression of, it's arrogant. I wasn't an arrogant person, but it's a spiritual arrogant way. When I look back now, it's like, well, who needs God if everything in my life is kind of going the way that I want? I put my mind to something and it happens. And so I started going, okay, well, maybe this is God trying to talk to me, or angels or something like that. And that's where I believe, before getting ahead of ourselves, that's exactly what it wanted me to think, because it was a lot of positive stuff, a lot of positive information. And before I forget, because there's so much of it, and this is kind of a message to the people that experience the New Age, right? The New Age, I didn't even know what New Age was. But when I started researching some of the stuff that was being messaged to me, I realized it was part of the quote unquote New Age ideology. Things like the Pleiadian Council, love and light, messages for humans. And it was all very clear that that's where it was leading, to the point where some of the stuff I was writing down literally was a whole section on the Pleiadian Council. And I'm like, whatever that is, I'm just going to keep noting. And it was breaking down how this council worked. And for it, once again, this information would come into my head, and then it seemed like it would dissipate as far as me really remembering what it was all about. When I take a look at the notes, I would look back a couple weeks later. I'm like, this is insane. Like, what is this stuff? The point being is, if you're involved, I want to be careful, because I don't want to, it's not for me to tell people what to believe. I'm not here to offend people or be condescending, but I can tell you that the ideology that was coming through matches almost perfectly to what I see in the New Age. And that is, let's just build you up so that you can get on a higher vibration and frequency and do the same things that Jesus did. Bottom line, I'm just telling the truth. That's what it was when it was all said and done.
You talked about things being like having good messages, but it's important also to say that it wasn't only good. Like, if I just remember some of the things you talked about, the feeling of there's absolute creepiness in the things that you talk about, the voice coming from the phone, the fog on top of the lamppost, and the feeling of dread and fear that was accompanied. Like, sure, there were some things that felt, but it wasn't the only thing. So I think it's important to talk about this. But I do want to go back to the information you would get, because in the previous interview that I've seen where you were telling your testimony, you talked about, among the other things like pyramids and Bigfoot and all of that, something that was coming out of you is called the Law of One. Now, I don't really know what it is, but I would like you to talk about it. Like, how much was that in your writing? And when you looked it up, like, what was that about?
Yeah, sorry. So if the audience is confused here, so I'm trying to keep it chronological. This is like at the very beginning, right? The very beginning stages of that automatic writing was started happening probably 6 months into that. And you're right, there was the kind of that creepy feeling that would come in every once in a while. Quite honestly, looking back, I think the good feeling overwhelmed it, and that was part of it, right? It's almost like I was like, well, yeah, some of it doesn't feel right, but I'm just going to run with it here, right? Which is probably a mistake. I'm sure it was a mistake looking back. But the law of one, that was another interesting thing where I had, once again, in perfect penmanship, written across the top of the page, the law of one. I didn't know what the law of one was. So I start going and researching it. And if you take a look at it, essentially, in a nutshell, it's like three people back, it's very well documented, three people back in the early 80s had gotten together and they were trying to meditate in and essentially contact another consciousness, or what they would call ETs, right? Like extraterrestrials, if possible. So they would have, her name was Carla Ruckert. She would be what they called the medium. So she would be the one, the instrument essentially, that would try to receive this information. And then they would meditate around her, but they would also log this stuff. So it's all completely documented. So they would ask questions, and it's a channeling, right? That's what they call it. So they would ask these questions, and then they would ask, the information would come in. And I started thinking as I read that, I'm like, this is kind of exactly what's happening to me, but I'm not asking anything. Like, it seems like something's coming in and I'm getting this information that you can't really make up. If you look at the law of one stuff, it's the same thing. Like, it's so convincing, and it talks about like who the creator is and how creation works and all this stuff, where it looks like the best scientific, science sci-fi movie, product that there would be. It's nuts. You look at it and you're like, nobody can really make this up. If they have, they deserve an award for it. It's crazy stuff. And so the law of one is something where I started going, man, what is the story here? I seem to be getting the same type of information these people are. You're still at a loss. Remember, I don't have any sort of biblical foundation. I'm flying by the seat of my pants. So any sort of grounding in truth, this is exactly why I tell this story, because when I look back on it, I was just getting like sucked deeper and deeper into a rabbit hole and I wasn't going to be able to explain what was happening. It was just convincing me that I was getting good information. So keep writing, right? Go with the flow.
And talking about explaining things, I'm sure that your family was aware at this point. You had you talked about your wife and your kids. Did you tell them about it? Did they notice? And if they did, what was their reaction to all of that?
Yeah. So remember, when you go through something like this, I can only speak on my experience. When your reality's twisted up and you don't understand what's going on and you can't really tell people, I'm not playing victim to it. It's a very lonely place to be. I don't want anybody to ever have to experience that. Plus, here's kind of the strategy behind, if you want to look at a big picture of it. To me, this was the enemy. Okay, this was the enemy coming in, and number one, get you isolated. All right, when you get isolated, everybody around you. I was a fun-loving person that had a lot of friends before all this happened, and being in corporate and everything, you have a lot of different connections and everything else. Your life starts falling apart because you don't know what's happening to you, and it gets to the point where you don't even want to be around other people, because quite honestly, I was starting to get scared. I was like, what is happening to me? If I'm taking this information and I feel like I almost can't help but write it down, like I'm either getting really strange or something strange is happening to me. And so people around you start seeing, well, why is he isolating so much? I started drinking a ton because I'm like, I'm masking. I was at this point in the story, I could not sleep very well at night because there's more than just these sightings. I'm now starting to have regular occurrences with orbs, and this would happen usually middle of the night, a lot of times at 3 o'clock on the dot, where I'd be woken up out of a sleep, if I could even sleep, and I would feel like I would have to go outside, get the experience of the orbs and whatever, the experience that was going to be, so that I could get back and finally get to sleep. Because I knew if I didn't go out and have the experience, I wasn't going to be able to sleep. It would just be like this incessant nagging that's, okay, you got to get outside, get it over with, get back inside. Which is very strange, I know. But to answer your question, is that people start seeing is, yes, something's going on with this guy. And you have to be very careful with who you tell, because I'm thinking inside, in my head, I'm like, I can't be the only one experiencing this. I need to find out, like, who else is experiencing this? So I would kind of drop little hints here and there to people, but I could not get anybody to bite. Like I would show them a video, like, hey, have you ever seen this? Have you ever seen orbs doing this? Down at the beach, or I'd be at my boat, and there was other types of what looked like craft and things in other videos, and people would there's a different reaction. Close family members, especially my mom, pretty much lived this with me. My aunt lived this with me because they saw the video footage. They're like, babe, there's something going on with you, and we don't know what's happening, right? And I couldn't explain it, but they saw me kind of deteriorating. Other people, like even close friends I had for years, it was almost like a switch would go off. If I would show them some of the footage and be like, try to kind of like a cry for help, like, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. I don't understand. Like, have you ever seen this before? It was almost like a switch would go off, and I think it's more like a fear mechanism where they would almost retaliate and almost attack. Like, no, dude, I don't know what that is. I don't want to see it. Or you're like a 9-year-old. What are you doing? Like looking for aliens or something? I got that response a couple of times. It was rare. Most of the time the response would be, and the few people I shared it would be, I don't know. Like I don't know what to tell you. I didn't know what to tell myself. So that was the typical reaction. One of the main reasons that I tell this story is when I went to a therapist, and this is where I actually had strategized going to the therapist because I wanted to see if I wanted to test to see how she'd react to this. And about 5 sessions in, we had really good rapport. She was probably in her mid-40s or kind of the same age. And she's like, Jason, I don't think you really need to, come back to more sessions if you don't want to. But I'm here if you need me. And I said, well, that's not really why I've been here. I want to get to the core of the issue. The reason I've been drinking so much, I think, and everything else, and depressed, is I'm experiencing this stuff. I don't know who to show. I'm like, you don't need to tell me anybody. You don't need to name names. All I want to know from you is, have you ever had anyone share with you in your sessions that they're experiencing something like this? And she took the phone and she starts playing back some of the footage of some of the orbs that were going nuts on the screen, and just kind of a typical experience for me at that point. And she got kind of like wide-eyed, and it was almost like I watched a robot go into a automatic, let's go ahead and prescribe this guy now, whatever matches what I just saw. And she literally, on the spot, prescribed me schizophrenic for showing that video to her, which I was so angry, but I guess I was mad at myself. I was like, dude, you should have known better. You should have never brought this up. So now, you're schizophrenic. That goes into like a database, right? She's prescribing this, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, I'm never going to see my kids again. So that just made it worse. That was like a death sentence for me. And at that point, yes, everybody around me knew something was going on. At this point, I made the decision, I don't know what this is. I don't know how to stop it. I think it's best for me just to end this whole thing. I think I'll just drink myself to death. That was my mentality. And that's exactly what it wanted me to do. This whole force, this darkness, it was like laughing all the way to the spiritual bank. Got him isolated. He thinks he's crazy. Everybody else thinks he's crazy. He's hopeless. Battle won. And I didn't know how to get rid of this. I didn't know Jesus. I didn't know spiritual authority. No clue.
I need to say that I mean, I don't know this lady, and I don't want to put a judgment on her, but it makes absolutely no sense to prescribe someone based on a video. Like, if you had described it, I would have maybe more understanding, like, oh, it sees things in his head. But the whole idea of schizophrenia is there's things going on in your head, not on a video. So I don't know what she was thinking, but it makes me wonder how many people go through things like this and get diagnosed with things that are totally wrong because they just have weird encounters like you have. Who really knows? But I'm sure that it's a lot more than just you. I can maybe leave it at that. So very clearly, when these things start going down, your life goes downhill. It was already not going too well before, but just seems like it went down a pretty steep slope. What did you do, like after, or maybe at the point that we stopped? Like, what direction did your life take after that?
So to put it, I guess, on a timestamp so the audience kind of knows where we're at. So I'm at the point where this is 2019, early mid 2020. And so let's just call it mid 2020. And I'm at the point where I'm giving up. I don't know what these experiences are, having them all the time. I do have people that believe me. They don't know what to tell me. I left out too. This is where, and this is important. I had never experienced any sort of paranormal activity before. The typical things you would see like on the ghost shows and things. But there was something going on in my apartment for sure, and that started happening pretty quickly after the first few sightings. And I wanted to try to kind of blow it off, but it was the typical stuff. Stuff would shift around on my coffee table, shelves by themselves, but the darkness that came into that apartment was evident. There was something happening. There was a creepy vibe that came into the apartment to the point where I didn't even feel comfortable having my kids over because I could tell that they had mentioned a few times, like when they had come over, that this place I don't really care for. It wasn't me. Like, we were having a great time together. They just didn't like the apartment, and I knew why. I'm like, I know why. This place has got a weird vibe to it, and I ended up getting out of there pretty quick. So I am at that point where I'm alone, and it's over COVID too, right? So most people are isolated. And I'm going through this hardcore stuff where I can't explain what's happening. Reality is twisted upside down. There's no explanation. And I literally start going, okay, well, plans are, I guess, is just I can't seem to find any other way to mask this, which sounds like an excuse until you're kind of in it. It's like alcohol was the only thing that would slow down those thoughts that were coming into my head that seemed like it was 24/7. This bombardment of whatever, however you want to label it, telepathic thought form that was coming in. It was so quick all the time. It felt like I was on hyperdrive all the time with my thoughts. And if I would drink, it would come down to kind of a normal level and I could chill. But then you can't do that because drinking always works until it doesn't, right? So you drink enough and you're going to end up spiraling. So I'd gone to a 30-day alcohol rehab treatment, try to get better. That didn't really work. 30 days usually never does. But I started realizing like there's nothing in these sessions that I'm not getting tools for what I'm dealing with. Like, I can't tell people what I'm dealing with. Like, this has nothing to do. The alcohol is a byproduct, right? That's the way I looked at it. Even though I did have a problem with alcohol, obviously I'm drinking too much to cover all this stuff up. So that's not an excuse for the behavior of drinking too much. Just like, that's not the core of it. Core of it was a presence that I didn't understand. So at this point, I'm pretty much going to the point where I'm just gonna drink myself to death. And that's what I tried to do. And a lot of people that that drink pretty much daily, I think subconsciously or consciously, that's what they're trying to do. It's sad, but that's really what it is at some point.
So this whole thing of trying to drink yourself to death, how long did that last, and how did you come out of it?
So that was a little over a month, probably 5 weeks. And it was literally just door dashing vodka. And it was one of those things where I wouldn't go down. Like, I'd drink the vodka, pass out, wake up, and I'd be bummed out that I wasn't gone. I'd do it all over again, order some more. I could barely type on the phone to even get the orders in. It was pathetic and sad at the same time, but I was at a loss, totally hopeless. And I'd been to treatment for 30-day treatments, 2 of those previous to this. And the second one I had been to, so the one before this whole vodka excursion, was probably a year before this, and I had met my friend Jason in there, so same name, and he had. I ended up in the same room as him when I got to the recovery home. So you don't know who you're going to be in the room with. You're basically there just to detox, see the doctor, and get up the morning and start your program. And that night when I got there, he was in the room with me and he was screaming like all throughout the night. And I thought, man, this guy's really going through it. He's coming off of something hard, but I couldn't wake him up. I was trying to see if he was okay. Went on all night long. Well, the next morning I'm in the kitchen and he walks in and I'm like, hey, man, I was like, were you in the room with me last night? Like in that door right down the hallway? And he's like, yeah, man, I'm sorry. Was I snoring too loud? And I'm like, no, dude, you were screaming like all night long and I could not wake you up. And he kind of like, I remember he's sitting at the fridge and he shuts the door and he's just like, yeah, dude, demons, man, demons. And at that point, it kind of clicked. Like, I think there's a lot more to this. And I'm thinking that everything that I've heard as far as stories go in treatment and people talking about dark entities and battling what I thought were metaphorical demons, I'm like, I think these things are real. So we have a conversation, and he was open right off the bat. And he actually claimed, and this is why I know we were supposed to meet. Jason's no longer with us. He ended up passing away shortly after this. But he went on to tell me that he could see in the unseen realm, and he could see his whole life. He could see angels. He could see demons. And I was like, dude, I believe you, man. I was like, I think that I'm experiencing kind of the same stuff, and I don't know what it is. And so um, when I go through this whole like 30 days of trying to end it, he shows up on my door, and he knows it's serious because he's up in LA. So he's a couple hours away. But we've been talking on the phone, and he kind of shows up out of nowhere. He's got a bunch of groceries for me, and I'm out of it. I mean, I'm out of commission. My place is full of gnats, by the way. It was disgusting. It was a super nice apartment. That's how bad it got. I couldn't even move. I couldn't get out. All I could do is DoorDash the vodka and go back at it. And so he proceeds to, I remember, pull a chair up next to my bed. I kind of prop up, and he was always a really happy-go-lucky guy, but I could see that he was super serious, and had this look of concern in his eyes. And as he was kind of going, "Hey, man, your eyes, look at them, they're yellow. You've got probably jaundice, right? Because my liver had been shutting down essentially. My feet were all swollen." And he's like, "Dude, this is bad. Like, you gotta get to the hospital." And I could tell it's like he held off, and then he finally goes, "You know what?" And this is where he got a little bit stern, which I had never heard him do this. He goes, "It is not your time." He goes, "I see an angel right there." And he points over my shoulder. There's an angel right there, points over the other shoulder, and an angel right there, like right above me. And with no sliver of hope at all, something at that moment was just like a little voice was like, "This is your last chance. Get to the hospital." And I did. He helped me up. We got out of there, and he got me to the hospital and then into a 90-day treatment. I stayed with him for a couple of weeks, and then it took us a while to find something, but he got me into a 90-day treatment up in Long Beach, which I was there for, basically it's like you're in jail, right? You're there co-ed, and it was like 100 people. Some people there just for like court order and things because they just want to get that done with. But there were some people that took it serious. And I took that time almost like it was God's way of positioning me there to really resonate with the people that were diagnosed with mental illness. There were people in there that were supposedly schizophrenic, people that were bipolar, dissociative personality disorder, whatever it was. And I somehow gravitated to those people because I knew what had been going on with me, and I knew it wasn't normal. And I also knew that I wasn't crazy. I may have been acting a little crazy and experiencing things that would be crazy, but I wasn't crazy. And I knew that deep down. So I'd have these in-depth conversations with these people, and I started realizing real quick that a lot of them would have the same stories, the same dark entities they would explain. Some of them had already committed suicide and survived it, like literally had like a near-death experience. And I would ask them, I'd ask them about the near-death experience, about afterwards, and they would share that with me, but also beforehand, like what was going on before that. Some of them, I remember one guy in particular, one of my buddies, he ended up trying to take his own life with a 45, like right underneath his chin. He survived it. It literally went right between his two hemispheres. He said that before he had attempted to take his own life, that there were dark shadows like cruising around in his home, around his TV, peeking around at him. And he said that had been going on for weeks. And you could say, well, that's just some sort of drug-induced psychosis. Okay, whatever it is, it was real to him. And he thought that the only way out was to end his own life. And so I saw that over and over again. And that's where I was like, you know what? I'm here for a reason. And I'm here to have these interactions with these people so that I can start at least making aware to people that, hey, this isn't crazy talk. Like there is spiritual forces at work. Spiritual warfare is real. But even at that time, I still didn't really understand like spiritual authority in the name of Jesus and things like that. I was just kind of nitpicking at the Bible at that time, trying to figure things out.
You mentioned something about, psychosis or drug psychosis, right? And I'm thinking there might be some people watching that in an attempt to rationalize everything that you're saying would say, well, it's because you were drinking. Because during a lot of the times that we talked about, there was heavy drinking. You go to this rehab for 90 days, you come out, I assume, sober. Did the experiences of the UFOs and the darkness and whatever was going on in your house, did that stop once you became sober?
It did for almost 18 months. And by the way, I'd gotten out of the other apartment that was having the paranormal activity. I couldn't stand that place. So I was in this new place, which is where I tried to take myself out with the vodka. But no, it left me alone. And maybe it was because the drinking itself that I was doing, trying to mask it while it was attacking me, maybe that was a gateway. Maybe that was like a legal right to me while I was drinking. So once I'm done drinking and clean, I don't get any visitations for a while. Went about 18 months, and I'm Uber driving at this point because I literally didn't have anything left. I had my vehicle left. That's how damaging this was. I wasn't like a wealthy person, but I had everything I wanted and more from a material standpoint. And I remember this one specific date. Remember, this is like 18 months after I had gotten out of treatment, had been sober. I picked up this woman, and it was still dark out. It was that early in the morning, and I picked her up from work, dropped her off at home up in the foothills. And at that moment, and the first time in like 18 months, that feeling came on, and I can't describe it. I don't know how to describe the feeling itself, but that presence came on where I'm like, oh no, like I know what that is. And I remember looking up, and I was parked in this I pulled over into this industrial parking lot that was close to this woman's house. And as I looked up, I'm like, man, this is exactly where I've experienced a lot of these orbs in the past, especially over the last apartment that I was in, where I was going through the whole vodka deal. I had a balcony that overlooked these mountains where I would get that sensation, that calling, and I would go out there and I had some crazy footage on that where, I mean, I'm talking orbs that are huge, that are materializing above the mountains, dematerializing, doing strange stuff, and I knew they would be there. And so as soon as I look up, of course, boom, this orb materializes, and I'm like, here we go again. I'm like, this isn't going away. And so I tried to white knuckle it for like a week. I white knuckled it, but I could feel almost right away. And I don't think this was a head thing. I don't think this is an illusion or in my mind. I tried to just forget it. I was like, I'm good. That thing can't bug me anymore. I'm just going to do my thing. And I tried to fight that week. The depression started coming on, the darkness, and once again, in my bones. And I knew something was off. And I started getting more and more down and discouraged because I'm like, this thing is never going to leave me alone. I'm praying to God at this point. Like, God, tell me how to end this or I am going to end it. I don't know how to end it. And then it's like victim mode. Like, why is this happening? Why would you do this to my family? Why would you do this to my life? And I'm angry at this point. But at the end of that week, I'm so down that I pull in, I remember, to the grocery store parking lot. And remember, I'm literally living out of my car at this point. That's all I have left. It is here to steal, kill, and destroy. And it did it in that order to me. Still didn't really know what was going on, though. Still didn't really know if there was a form of the devil or dark forces. I had a very good suspicion, especially after the things about the stories of the demons and things I was hearing in treatment. But I still wasn't convinced. I just didn't have the context of it's UFOs. It looks like spacecraft. What does that have to do with the Bible? So I remember I'm sitting there looking at like my bank account, and I'm just drained. I'm once again victim mode. I'm praying to God, like I'm doing everything I can. I don't know what else to do. I'm running on fumes, and I just leave it at that. Go inside, and I know that going into the store in that state of mind, because I know in the back of my head, I'm like, I might as well just start drinking again because this isn't going away. I got to find a way to end this, or at least make this feeling go away temporarily. And of course, I'm totally ashamed of myself at that point because you tell yourself, I'll never do this again. I'll never drink. So I get into the store. I bolt to get some water. On the way out, I see there's like there's boxes of wine right behind me. I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to grab them, throw them in. So total meltdown. Get out to the car. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to go park and find a place where I'm not going to be driving around. I'll just park on one of these side streets that's legal, and I'll take down these boxes of wine and pass out and see what happens. Because I know something most likely is going to happen after this. There's going to be more visitations or more forces trying to come through. All this sounds totally crazy to me, even talking about it now, by the way. This is what would happen. So I put the seats down the back. I pass out in the back, and I wake up, and it's daytime. I don't know how long I've been in there. It wasn't that much wine. I mean, 4 boxes of little tiny wine things. I hadn't drank in a while, but it's nothing that's going to like put me over the edge, not to the point where I would be like hallucinating or something. But I'm super dehydrated. I don't know how long I've been in there, but this is where the crazy stuff happens. Is I remember I perched myself up to get into the driver's seat to check my phone, but my phone, I look at it, is completely dead. It's plugged in, but it's dead. I'm like thinking, no big deal, fine. I'll just start up the car and charge the phone. I go to fire up the Tesla by just clicking on the brake, and that ignites the screen, right? If you've ever been in a Tesla, nothing, which means at least the 12 volts down, if not the full battery. I'm like, this isn't good. Like, my phone is now plugged in and it's not charging. Nothing's engaging on the brake, or as far as the power goes. I'm thinking, how is this even possible? You always have a backup on the 12. Well, the next thing I do is the windows are cracked on each side by about a 1/4 inch so I could have air. And I reach over to open the door and I hit the electric latch to open it. That's the way you open up these vehicles. I hit the electric latch. Nothing. There's no power. 12 volts out. Now I'm kind of like, what do I do now? Like, there's got to be an emergency latch. So I'm kind of going into a panic mode. And this will sound kind of stupid, except for since this, people have sent me numerous articles where if you don't know how to get out of this car manually, it's almost virtually impossible to find. I was searching for the owner's manual so I could find, well, there's got to be a latch like under the seats or in the back. But the glove box is electric too. That's not working. My phone, I can't look up how to open it. So now I'm starting to really freak out. I'm locked in the car. It's getting a little bit warm. I can tell I'm super dehydrated. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to start trying to wiggle on the window, see if I can bust it open. I'm pounding on it a little bit with my elbow. I start punching at it. That's not going to do anything. So then I go to yell. So I'm like, well, I'm on the side street, but if somebody can hear me, they're going to think I'm crazy. So I'm going to have to, say, hey, I'm not crazy. I'm trapped in the car, whatever. I go to yell out of the car. Nothing. My voice is virtually gone. I don't know why my voice is gone. I mean, just dehydration. Didn't make sense to me. So I'm locked in this vehicle with apparently no way that I can find out. And at that moment, I go black, where I'm just like, I'm out again. Like, I just kind of passed out. And I debated telling this story on the first time I shared this was the last podcast I did. This is the only second time I've shared this story. I debated sharing it, but there were so many people in the comments that have had experiences like this that I didn't feel so bad sharing this, like I was going to come across as making up some crazy story, because this was more real than real. And what happened at that point is everything seemed to like fade to black, but then it was almost an entering into a different type of dimensional state that was very crystal clear. And it was almost digitized. That's what it felt like. Kind of going back to that hologram experience that I had in the hotel room after the push-ups. That's what it seemed like more of a digital type interface that I was with. And this circle shows up, and looks like a kind of a, I'll just get kind of in the details, see how weird it was. It was like a Japanese sumo wrestler that morphed into like a red dragon, and then it would spin in circles, but there was a definitive beat, like almost a techno beat that was coming from it. And I felt like it was trying to get my attention. And I remember thinking, don't give it attention. Stay away from it. You got to try to get out of this. I don't know how to separate out from this new little reality that I'm in right here. And so I end up kind of getting fixated on it unconsciously. And then I don't know if you've been to like the optometrist when they do what's called the autofractor machine, where you click the button every time a dot shows up when, the doctor's like, okay, every time a dot shows up, click your thumb. That's what this was like. It's like these dots would show up, and it's like I would feel compelled to look at them. And they almost reminded me at the time, this was going through my head, I'm like, this kind of reminds me of like when I would see these orbs, like the kind of same thing. I'm looking up in the sky. So I'm kind of fixated on these things. And at that moment, this is where I'm convinced now that there's a form of the devil or some form of a dark entity that has been on me for who knows how long. Because over the top of my right shoulder, I remember this super deep, loud, like, hey, comes over the top. And I'm like, oh my God, that doesn't sound good. But I'm hoping maybe that's just somebody like outside the car, like that's going to help. And I look back, and of course, nothing. I'm looking over to my left. There's nothing. There's no people walking down the street. I'm not seeing even any traffic going by. And that's when I'm like, oh my God, this is not good. And at that point, I had a flashback where the flashback came actually, let me back up. When that hay came through, it was now you're going to create with me. It was something to that effect. You're mine, and now you're going to create with me because this is all mine. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And then a flashback starts coming in, or flashbacks into my head. And I think this is where God was coming in, because remember, I'd been asking God how to end this. And I had these flashbacks of things that I hadn't thought about in 20 years, at least. And the first one was, I remember when I was working in finance, I worked on the phones, and so we'd be placing trades. We'd be real busy. We all had our own little cubicles. And I remember a guy he was an acquaintance. I knew him by name, but I didn't really know him except for the workplace. I remember he came over the top of my cubicle. This is the flashback I'm having, and it's very vivid. This is out of nowhere as I'm going through this experience. And he's like, hey, Jason, have you considered Jesus as your Lord and Savior? And this was an actual event that happened. And I was like, I totally forgot about it. And I remember thinking at the time, I'm like, either this guy's going straight in for the kill or he's joking, right? And I'm like, Bill, dude, I'm trying to place a trade here, so I kind of ignore him, but he kind of stomps off. And that little vision ends. And then I get another vision where I'm on the phone with one of my buddies, and he's like asking me as I'm kind of going through it, like just point blank, like, Jason, have you accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior? And I remember telling him at the time, I'm like, and this was only a few years earlier, I'm like, yeah, I've done that. Knowing deep down I hadn't. I was going through these experiences and I was just trying to figure all that out. Didn't see any biblical relation, so I was having my doubts. And I realized at that point, like, this was God trying to tell me, I think, hey, I've given you some chances. I've given you opportunities in your life and you've ignored them. And at that point, a kind of a form of anger and authority, almost like I was being lifted up. Like there was some sort of a lifting in my spirit where I was now in authority. That's what I felt, almost powerful. And what came out of my mouth to me was not consciously my decision, because I laid into whatever was happening around me with this voice and everything else. And I was like, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. I plead the blood of Jesus over my bloodline, my family, my circumstance. You no longer have any control over me. And I mean, I am feeling really like this is it. I'm finally confronting this thing. And that whole little digital, what kind of matrix type reality that I was in at that moment just kind of faded out. Boom. Done. And I did leave something out. I do remember as I was rebuking that out, that voice that was over my shoulder, it came back. And it was almost like I got the sense, and I believe this is exactly what it said. It was something to the effect of, if not exactly, are you mocking me? Like, are you mocking me and my creation? And I'm like, everything fades. And I'm thinking, well, I almost debated putting that part in because that sounds so stereotypical of maybe something the enemy would say. That's what I experienced. And so at that point, there's knocking on the side window. And I just hear, and I'm out. I'm still just kind of like unconscious. And I just see kind of blue out of the window there. And it's the Orange County firefighters. And I can hear him yelling. I can't even talk because I'm out. And he's like yelling, like I can hear him going, are you kidding me? You can't even open your own doors. Like I remember him saying that. And I was just kind of pointing like, dude, I've tried that. Like, good luck. And I think he saw me like, I'm out. So they finally, long story short, they end up getting through the window on the other side, getting a latch open, get me out. I end up in the hospital. And this is kind of where this whole fiasco ends, is as far as the experiences go. So I ended up staying in the hospital for like 4 or 5 days because I ended up being in that car, by the way, because I got police reports. I had no idea how long I'd been in there. I had no food and water. 6 days. And that was off of phone records. Nobody had heard from me. and from when they actually got into the car. 6 days, which is pretty tough to survive in general. So another miracle. I tell that story to people like very rarely, and a lot of people are like, dude, that's not possible. You can't survive that long. Happened. So I'm in the hospital, and they're telling me the sodium levels and everything are through the roof. So I'm sitting there pounding water. So they're keeping me so that they can basically monitor me. And as I'm drinking the waters, I remember the nurse comes to visit me, and I'm like, hey, can I get another water? I'm just taking these 32 ounces ice water down like crazy. And as she goes to fetch the water, you have to remember, I'm seeing double, because I would look up at the clock in the hospital room, and I wouldn't even be able to tell the time. I would just see two clocks. I think I was so out of it and dehydrated, I had double vision. But I could see that there was this woman walking towards me, and it doesn't look like a nurse, though. I just see like all white. And as she gets closer, it's blurry, but I can see it's like shoulder length, like white hair. But it really, like, I got a really peaceful presence as she approached. And as she came up, I noticed, okay, this is like a lady maybe in her 70s or something. And she calls me by name. She's like, Jason, you've been through so much. Would you mind if I pray for you? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm like, I need all the prayer I can get. So I put my hand out, and I remember as she touched my fingers, it was like tingling, almost like electric, like a tingling sensation. And the peace that came over me was almost as good as that peace that I had felt that first experience that I had at the beach with that light. But she started praying over me, and she was saying things like she knew what I had been through. She's like, this man has been through so much, Lord. Heal him so that he can serve his purpose and get back to his family. And she kept going on. And I remember just like closing my eyes, like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I need prayer for. And so she gets done, and she kind of just walks out of the room. The nurse comes back in, like almost immediately. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. You have people coming around and praying for patients in the hospital. And she just looks at me and she's like, no, not today. She's like, they might come around later this week or something, but there's nobody here today. And at that point, I'm just like, nothing surprises me, which was beautiful, because you saw, like, I knew God was there the whole time, but I didn't. You could feel that unseen fight for your soul. Sorry, but I didn't realize that he had my back that whole time, which was crazy. So I've never cried about this. It's crazy.
Well, thank you for telling the story, and I do believe that it'll speak to some people. I need to ask you though, like, this thing about Jesus was new for you. At least that's what it seems like in the way that you're telling it. You definitely weren't religious before, not even a little bit, from what I can understand. So when that lady came to you, these flashbacks came to you, what did you make of it?
When the flashbacks came to me during the car incident?
When all this information about Jesus was kind of being revealed to you, like, how did you take that?
Oh, well, first of all, I'm like, well, this is the only thing that ended this experience. It tried coming back a couple times after this, but I would just know the feeling, and I could get rid of it right away. I would get that feeling, and it didn't even bother me. I'm like, you're not bugging me, and I'd rebuke it away in the name of Jesus. It's gone. I haven't had any of those experiences or even that feeling in, gosh, I don't know, 2 years now, maybe year and a half, 2 years. Doesn't matter. I now know the authority over it. But then I started actually really digging in, and I think once this was all settled, I started asking God one night, I don't know what all this was for, except for the fact that I obviously was able to find you. That's the most important thing. But if there's nothing I can do with this, I'm just going to drop it. I'm not going to tell this story. It doesn't do me any good to have all this video footage. It's like, I don't know. I guess I'll never know. And I wasn't really even frustrated at that point. I was just like, I'm just going to drop it. If there's something I can do with it, though, let me know. That was kind of my prayer. If there's something I can do with it to help other people that are doing this, let me know. This is like 10:30 at night, and this is in the summer of 2024. So this has been not even a year after this whole debacle in the car and things. And so 10:30 at night, and I get a text right away, right as soon as I'm done with that prayer. And I take a look, and it's my buddy. He happens to have a podcast too, and it just says, "Hey, would you mind sending me some of your UFO footage? I want to put it on my podcast and talk about it." And I'm thinking, yeah, well, you can put it on the podcast. I'm not going to, talk about it, whatever. So I said, yeah, sure, go for it. So at the same time, I'm kind of like, I don't even want to deal with this, but I'll just go through and I'll see what I can find for him. And I was so used to weird at this point. I literally close my eyes and I just start going through my photos and I'm just kind of scrolling. And I end up, the first one I hit on, the first video, because I had hundreds of these orbs and things like that, and a few craft here and there. First one I land on is just like, it looks like just dark night sky. So there's nothing to get out of it. And I'm thinking, okay, I just need to delete that one. But I click on the one right next to it. And I know where I'm at because I know the date and I know that I was staying on my boat at that time. There was a period of about 3 months where I just lived on my boat down at the harbor. And this was the spring of 2019 of when these went on the videos I'm on. So this is summer of 2024 after this prayer, and I'm checking out my phone. The video I'm on is from spring of 2019. And I click on it, and when it pulls up, it's like, it didn't surprise me because I knew that all the things I've been going through, but that's the one that I'd sent over to you. It's essentially what appears to be, it's totally silent, it takes up the whole screen of the phone, so it can't be more than about 100 yards away, I'm estimating, but it looks like a dome formation, and then the rest of the craft goes outside, but it's just streaming white lights going back and forth, just like you'd see out of a movie, kind of just streaming on the side of the UFO, whatever you want to call it, the craft. And I'm commentating in that video. It's 40 seconds long to a T. And I'm commentating, you hear me say verbatim, that is unbelievable. I cannot see that on my phone. So apparently I can see it with my naked eye, but I'm not seeing it on the recording on my phone. And then towards the end of the video, just kind of goes silent. And as you get towards the end, this is kind of out of character for me. I thought this was almost kind of humorous. I guess a little bit sketchy at the same time is you just hear me go, Jiminy Christmas, really? And then the video just goes off. Now, the kicker is I don't remember taking that video. And this would happen where I would go through these things and I would have these like what I called sober blackouts because it's all you could explain. It's like I'm not under the influence of anything and I'm blacking out. I've experienced that missing time. I'm blacking out, and especially after I'm having these sightings, you start feeling like a werewolf, like this isn't cool. Like how am I supposed to be in control of myself? And what if I'm a danger to other people? I mean, you don't know. Am I going to disappear? Am I going to vanish? And so all these things are running through your head. And I'm just like, all right. So I send it over to a couple buddies right away that knew and totally believed everything I was going through. And of course they're like, oh man, aliens, bro, that's got to be aliens. And so they're kind of doing the whole, back and forth with that. And so I don't know, but this led me to, so that was the first thing, that was the first catalyst as to why I tell this story, because I have the evidence that's undeniable, and I'm finding out that I literally am like blacking out and not remembering these encounters. Do you have any questions there? Because I'll go into what I experienced in church right after that, and that kind of wraps up like the second catalyst as to, okay, I'm going to run with this story.
Yeah, well, please explain that.
So it's maybe 2 months later. I'm still kind of going back and forth. Like, it's already documented. I've taken all these videos. I know the story inside and out of what's been happening to me. How do I articulate it? Do I write this? And I'm like, well, maybe I should start writing a book on it. I'm like, no. And then there's this little voice going, no, people are going to think you're crazy. You probably shouldn't bring it up because you're going to stir up people that don't believe you, and you may suck them in, and you're going to look like, the family member that, whatever. All these things are going in my head that are saying, don't do this. So 2 months later, I get another sign from what I look at from God, which is a buddy texts me on a Sunday morning, and he didn't text me that often. And he's like, hey, are you going to church today? I'm like, no, I'm still working, trying to catch up. And he goes, well, you should really come today. And I'm thinking, well, maybe that's a sign. Maybe I should drop work and get into church today. So I text him back. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be like 20 minutes late. And he's like, no problem. He's like, I'll look for you. So I show up to church, fairly large church that I go to. And I've gone to a few different ones, but this particular one, fairly large church. And I walk up, there's just a greeter left, and I walk in, it's standing room only. So I just kind of sit in the back, try not to interrupt anybody trying to get a seat or anything. So I notice as I look up at the stage that there's what appears to be a guest speaker up there, because usually would have the same 2 or 3 pastors. And I recognize that somebody different's up there. And I walk in literally at the moment that this guy who happens to be a pastor from another church that came in to speak. As he's telling a story about how him and his wife being heads at a church, he says, like, I'll paraphrase it, but basically he's saying, when you're a leader in the church, you kind of have to be careful. Some people ask you out to dinner and stuff like that. He's kind of joking around about it. Like, yeah, you never know what you're going to get. So he goes, but we accept the dinner invitation from this, what seems like a nice couple. So he goes, so we go out to dinner with them. And he's like, it was a great dinner and everything was great. But we decide that we'll go out on another dinner date with them a few weeks later. And then he proceeds to say that, well, on this second date, though, things didn't go so smooth. And he's like, I'm sitting there across from this man and his wife. And he says about halfway through dinner, this man is telling the pastor that he thinks his wife is having some mental health issues and that she thinks she's being visited by aliens. And the whole church erupts in laughter, right? Surprise, surprise. And I'm sitting there and I'm not angry. I'm like, what immediately went off in my head was like, this is exactly why I was supposed to be here. Like, I get to see the reaction of what people are, how they're reacting to somebody that's probably experiencing some form of what I'm experiencing, right? Probably just some normal lady that's going to end up getting medicated, with psych meds or whatever. I wish I could talk to her. That's all I'm thinking is I wish I could talk to that poor lady. But I'm watching people it almost seemed like it was slow motion. I'm watching these interactions where I'm seeing people kind of turn to each other and they're kind of laughing and nudging like, ha ha ha, And at that moment, I'm like, thank you, God. This is exactly why I was here. You're trying to show me, like, this is what the awareness. It's not a bash on the church. It's awareness. And we don't do a good enough job of it because people experience these things. It's real. But you're thrown away as a wingnut whack job. I don't think so as much now these days. This was only a year ago. And so I think there's a lot more to, we put a lot of things in a box, even in the church. And when we start putting things in a box, the church can be the enemy's biggest playground as far as hiding and deceiving as well. So anyways, that's why I decided to, at that moment, I'm like, okay, I'm running with the story. This can help people.
Yeah, well, thank you. And you definitely won't get that reaction here because I've heard a lot of these things. And I know you're not crazy. So I'm glad that you talk about it because the more awareness there is, the more people like that lady will be able to get help. So I appreciate it. I wonder, we talked about a lot of symptoms that started after your first encounter, automatic writing being one of them. After that lady in the hospital prayed for you and you started like turning your life towards Jesus, did these things ever come back?
No, like I was saying, the feeling came back for, I want to say 6 months after that feeling came back, like I was supposed to look in the sky, right? And when I looked, sure enough, it would always be like some sort of an orb or something materialized trying to get your attention. This particular one was during the day, and it was weird because it was like super bright green. And that's right, I just rebuke it in the name of Jesus, it's gone. I think the fact that there's no fear, there's no uncertainty, and it knows that, like, I'll go into prayer throughout the day. I do protection prayer too, and it's not in a fearful way. Like, I'll pray over my family, I'll pray over myself in the mornings for the protection through the blood of Jesus, go into prayer. I don't focus on that stuff anymore, but I understand now the authority that we have in the name of Jesus. And I never understood. I never knew any of that stuff. I was just, ignorant. And I tell people all the time, it's like, hey, ignorance is not necessarily bliss. Ignorance was very dangerous in my situation. And so, when I started looking like in the book of Philippians, where it's like every knee of creation will bow in the heavens, on earth, and below the earth in the name of Jesus, I've had so many opportunities to tell people, whether they're believers or not. Like, I've had a few buddies that they're still on the fence, man, but they know my story. And they're like, dude, that's pretty crazy because I knew what you were going through. And they'll come to me with maybe some depression or whatever. And I'm like, hey, rebuke it in the name of Jesus and move on. We'll start getting positive. Don't focus on it. And sure enough, a couple days later, we'll be talking. They're like, hey, man, that helped. I'm lightened up again. I'm lightened up. So this depression and everything, it's by design. Depression is going to be a diagnosis, so you go on a pharmaceutical. That's just by design. That's a no-brainer these days. That's been part of the structure since day one because, making a ton of money off of that by zombieing people out. I'm not saying that some people don't need medication, but I can tell you based on, and I'll try not to get too passionate about it, but when I was in treatment, I worked in treatment after this. And what I would see is people would come in and I would literally witness because I'd just do like the get them settled in, get the detox and everything done. But I would take them to their Zoom call with their doctor, their therapist. They would come out within 45 minutes. I'd had a total normal conversation with this person. Even if they were a little bit lit up on something because they were just getting to the house and getting ready to detox, this person wasn't crazy. I'm having a total fine conversation with them. They come out of that Zoom call all depressed, and I talk to them a couple days later after they get some rest. I'm like, how'd everything go with the doctor? Well, they say I'm schizophrenic. They say I'm bipolar. They say I'm this. And now they've got all these meds lined up. Really? Like in a 45-minute diagnosis, this person is all of a sudden for me, it was a crushing label to have to live with something like a diagnosis like that. So I'm very bold about that. But I won't apologize for that part of it. I think we have a lot of work to do in the mental health system on how we diagnose people, especially not taking into consideration the spiritual things that we don't understand.
Yeah. Well, when you don't believe that there is such a thing as the spiritual world, you're going to misdiagnose anything that is spiritual as something else. So
Exactly.
It's very natural for that to happen, and it happens a lot, unfortunately. I do want to wrap things up for now by asking you a couple questions. There's obviously a lot of things that are strange. There's a lot of things that we can't really know for sure, right, in your story, and probably still to this day, a lot of these things you don't really know at all what it was. But can you maybe share that? Like, what are some of the things that you're convinced about from this entire thing?
I'm thoroughly convinced that it's nefarious and diabolical by nature. Maybe there's good forms of the UFO phenomenon. I don't claim to know everything. I do know my particular situation, it was nefarious. The other thing is, it doesn't start that way. It starts very peaceful. Didn't even start with craft, right? Start with an orb and then evolved into that. And my take on it personally is, it's almost like Eve eating from the apple, to know good and evil. Maybe we're not necessarily supposed to know all of this stuff, but it was something that tried to convince me over time, very slick, very slick and intelligent, kind of groom me into, I guess, a philosophy in life at some point that, well, as long as you're thinking a certain way and maintaining a high upbeat vibration and frequency, that came up a lot, that you'll be able to attract whatever you want in life. So it's almost like you become a form of not doing God's will, but doing your will to maybe manifest. I know some of it worked because there were times where I was like, this is cool. Like I'm getting these messages. I am starting to be more positive. And there's like things manifesting, like literally things happening around me, which I think were little gifts. The other thing, and I'm sure of from my experience, is I think that they do give you gifts. I think that you'll get gifts that are temporary. And for me, it was an undisclosed trade, I think. And I don't know if that trade is a portion of your soul, your whole soul, whatever it is. But the psychic abilities I was getting, the gift of being able to do artwork for a short period of time, I think these are just little teasers like, hey, if you keep engaging with us, then these are these gifts you can have. And I don't think it should be a surprise, with everything going on being surfacing with the Epstein files and all of this, that there's a certain power you can gain from the dark side. And it's not just, it's not just from Star Wars. Like Star Wars is more like a documentary now with this spiritual stuff. And in order to maintain that power, which I wasn't even looking for, I think you have to continue to interact with it, maybe rituals, whatever else. And that's becoming something that I think people don't want to admit, maybe in some cases, because it's scary to them. But I think at some point we're going to have to realize that this is the way things work. There's good and there's bad. But I also don't try to focus on the dark stuff. I focus on Christ, and I focus on what his will is for me and what his purpose is for me and how I can help other people through this. And man, I'm telling you, it's like all the material things in my life that were gone, I still have the best relationships, a better relationship I think that I would have ever had with my beautiful kids. Because I think that I was blessed with kids that knew that their dad was going through something. They still don't know this story, but they knew their dad was going through something. And they never bailed on me. They always just, I could get that sense even when they were younger. They were like 6, 7, and 11 and 12 years old when this stuff was going on, the hardcore stuff of it. And everything happens for a reason, right? All good in the end.
I believe that to be true. You talked about gifts, and And I believe that that also is true, but at what cost, right? And you weren't trying to get these gifts, but everything points to that trying to take your life. Like even the thing in the car, all of that happening, like you almost died. You probably should have died. So that's the inevitable thing that I find. But when it comes to your conclusions, what would it be? If there's one message you would want to give to the people watching, what would you end it with?
I would end it with, like I said earlier, ignorance isn't bliss. It can be dangerous. And I think it's just a matter of maybe swallowing your pride or your ego and realizing there's so much that we don't understand in the unseen realm. And if you're on the fence about this stuff, I've told a few of my friends that I think are starting to realize after what they saw me go through that they've started reading the Bible. And I'll tell them, hey, go to Ephesians 6:12. Just read that and kind of see what's going on in the world. Just read that passage and just think about it, whether or not you believe in the Bible or not. And it's just like, it's not people that we battle. We're battling the principalities of the darkness behind it. And when you get an outlook on life like that, it's a lot easier to go through life not judging people and seeing that maybe this person's being influenced by a force that they don't understand, and do what you can to love on them and not judge, as hard as it can be sometimes.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Almost False podcast. As promised, if you want to see the videos that Jason talked about, you can join us for the after show on our website. We analyzed 3 different videos together. And honestly, I have never seen anything like this in my life. So if you're someone that says you need to see it to believe it, then you might want to check that out. On top of that, though, Jason and I talked for about half an hour before what you just heard, and it was all about the nuclear town that he grew up in that is filled with government secrecy. And who knows, maybe that has something to do with the UFO sightings in the area. I don't know. You'll be the judge. We also got a bonus story where Jason talked about his perspective on the shortcomings of mental health and recovery programs. All these videos are available on almostfalse.net or at the link in the description. 2 of them are free to listen to, but the after show is for members only. There's a free trial if it's your first time though, so check it out. I hope to see you there, but if not, it's okay. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day and stay blessed.